सरः दिनाङ्कः 12 प्रथमो भागः व्याकरणं तिङन्तप्रकरणं मङ्गलाचरणं रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम् रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर राम रामेति रामेति रमे रामे मनोरमे सहस्रनाम तत्तुल्यं राम नाम वरानने श्रीराम नाम वरानन ओं नमः इति. So this is again, today is Saturday, the 12th of November. This is the first class, 2:30 to 4, well, probably 4:15, Vyakaranam. Usual thank you to Kumud and Radha for doing all the work on the posts and the comments. So all these which are coming to every day, all these comments and posts, a lot of work has been done by Kumud and Radha also. And also Ravi is here as always to back us up in the recording and other matters. And the usual disclaimer that anything we say in the class is not the antima pramanam. It is not the antima pramanam. It's kevala vichara moolam, vichara bijam. It's only food for thought, pending verification. And anything that you find any errors, any omissions, of course, let us know. We will definitely make the correction so future students don't have to suffer through our mistakes. Okay, with the usual announcements, now let's start with this Kriya Ganaha. Last time we finished the Tanadi, so this is all to refresh our memory, get warmed up for the class. Our favorite sutram, Kartari Shap, which is 3168, that is the so-called Prathama Ganaha. The Panini never uses this term like Prathama, Dvitiya and just like that. But in the Ashtadhyayi order, that is the default Vikaranaha, Gana Vikaranaha. So that which alters the dhatu, depending on which Gana it is in. So on and so forth. Then we went down. Last time we finished with the Tanadi Kribhya Uhu. That is the Ashtama Ganaha. The Gana Vikaranaha is Uhu. So we did the Tanoti, Karoti, etc. we did last time. And now in the going down in the same order, we have Kriyadibhyashna. Kriyadibhyashna. So that is the 9th Gana. And so let's look at the vritti of that. So this is also, all these are apavada for shap. Shapopavadaha. Shapopavadaha sarve. Shapopavadaha. Says, here he says, and only vritti here by Siddhanta Kaumudi, Shapopavadaha. Shapopavadaha. It's an apavada for shap. Shapaha, apavadaha. Shapopavadaha. So the shna vritti is placed after the verbal roots belonging to the kriyadi ganaha, when followed by a pratyaya which is sanya of sarvadhatukam, and it's used kartari. So these are two anuvritti which we have seen all the time, which is the sarvadhatuke, iti anuvrittate, and of course kartari coming from kartari shap. Usual conditions. So by this time it should be no surprise for us at all. Very straightforward. It's a good thing about doing the Paninian way is that there are fewer and fewer new things to learn. In the beginning, it looks like a big investment. It is an investment to learn the methodology, but after that, it pays dividends because you have fewer things to learn. So one more time, these dhatus. I should give you a quick look at the dhatu parta here. Let's see, the dhatu parta is over here. There are about 70 odd dhatus in the Kriyadi Ganaha. Starts with this dhatu decreeing. Dravya vinimaye. Decreeing is in the sense of bartering, transacting, doing business, exchanging. But it's used in the sense of buying. And generally if it means of selling, we use with the upasarga vi. Vikriyanati is so vikrayaha. Vikrayaha, etc. is used in the sense of selling. So with that introduction, let us start. Now, as I said to you, any time we have to decide whether a dhatu takes atmanipadam, parasmapadam. We have not learned these rules, all these rules. So there will be some. Particularly, I just used particularly if you're using a form with upasarga, you have to be careful because there might be some specific rules for that dhatu. But otherwise, we can. I think there is a specific rule for this one. Let me just check that. So, well, normally we go with the rule that we know, which is the Sheshat Kartari Prasnapadam, which is 1, 3, 78. So any dhatu which there is nothing else said about it, there is no sutram to give it atmanipada pratyaya, then it takes parasyapadam is a default in kartari. And also a reminder that anything in the passive is always a bhavakarmanoho, it is atmanipadam. And we also see the rule which we have seen, anudatta gnyata atmanipadam, any dhatu which has anudatta swara on it letter, of the kavarga panchama as an it, that will take atmanipadam. This is all kartari we are talking about. In the passive, only bhavakarmanoho, it's always atmanipadam. Now, I just made a statement, parivyavebhyah kriyaha. Sutram which I have not put in the document, but here's a special sutram for dhatu decreeing dravya vinimaya. So these are two confusing things. So this is not the decreeing karane, this is decreeing dravya vinimaya. So there is a special sutram here which we will not study in detail, but just to show you how that we have to be careful of these special rules particularly when you use an upasarga, that there might be something special coming. So if you look at the sutram, I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. I should put this in English. It says decreeing dravya vinimaya. So it says normally it should have been atmanipadam kartravipraya kriya phale, but even otherwise, when the upasarga pari, vi or ava precedes, then following that only atmanipadam can be used. When it says somebody sells something, you say vikrinite, not vikrinati, vikrinite. Okay. Anyway, so let us go to the details here. Let's look at an example. So what we have is that, just take a simple example. When it takes, now this dhatu has this chavarga panchama as an it, decreeing dravya vinimaya. So the beginning do samudaya takes the it sanya by adir ni to ravaha. So the entire do is a single it, doesn't have putak it sanya nasti. So not the dakara and ukara is separate it, but the entire do gets it sanya. And then the ending chavarga panchama nyakaraha, of course, gets it sanya by halantyam. Alubandalope kri avashishyate, only kri remains. And because of the sutram 1372, it can take either atmanipadam parasyapadam. Because of that, saritajnitaha kartravipraya kriya phale. So, but right now let's start with the parasyapadam. And so this dhatu, shuddha dhatu, without any upasarga anything, can take either atmanipadam parasyapadam. I mean, the sutram does say, kartravipraya kriya phale, so technically atmanipadam should be used when the fruit of the action accrues to the doer. But that is not really followed, so basically it becomes ubhayapadi. But we do have to watch out for rules such as this, parivyavebhyah kriyaha and so on. But those are further details. So let's look at an example, which is kri plus lat, vartamane lat anubandha lopaha, upadesha jananasika it halantyam tasya lopaha. These steps are common steps. You have to keep on repeating them. Then tiptasji comes here, and then Sheshe Prathamaha and all those rules, and then finally we get the tip adesha by tip tajji alubandha lope ti. So up to this point there should be no surprise. That pratyaya coming in vartamanya lat alubandha lopaha, tip coming in by 3478, and we just said that by 1372 this dhatu is effectively ubhayapadi, so we take a example of parasyapadam. And now, because this is the first dhatu, this is dhatu in the kriyadigana, it's of course the first dhatu. So the pratyaya shna, the vikaranaha shna comes in here. So rather than kartari shap comes kriyaadibhya shna. So now remember that the shna is a has sanya of sarvadhatukam, ting shit sarvadhatukam. It also has a talavya shakara as an it. So by that it becomes nitvat because of sarvadhatukam apit by 124 sarvadhatukam apit. So mentioned to you many times that any time you have to look at a sarvadhatuka pratyaya, first thing you should ask is it a pit pratyaya or apit pratyaya. If it's apit, it becomes nitvat as if it has kavarga panchama as a nit, and that triggers a number of operations. First thing it triggers is the kniticha. 115, which will stop any guna vriddhi, so that pratyaya becomes important, so to speak. It cannot cause any guna vriddhi operation. So right here itself, because kri, the ending ikaraha, so gunadesha praptaha, we have taken gunadesha by sarvadhatuka ardhadhatukayoho, but that is stopped because of kiniticha. If you look at kri nati, and then we just finish the form by doing natvam, so anubandha lopaha by lashakvatadhite tasya lopaha, and then natvam by atkapvanyum vyavayepi, atkapvanyum vyavayepi. So here we have the repa is the nimittam, and the vyavadhanam is only by the ikaraha, that's an at, so we get the nattam, so kri nati. So only one sutram we need to derive this entire conjugation table of the dhatu kri in both parasya padam and atmani padam. We require only one sutram, which is this kriyadibhyashna. So one more time, this sutram is apavada for shap, just like the other one which we saw. So all of these rules which we saw, like divadibhyashyan, rizadibhyashnam, all of these are shapopavadaha. So just like that, this sutram also, kriyadibhyashna, is apavada for kartari shap. It is the same vishayaha as kartari shap, so it will come only kartari sarvadhatuke. So any dhatu in this gana will take the gana vikarnaha shna instead of shap. So now if you want to look at the table here, all these forms you can derive with no further rules required. No further rules. Let's take the dvivachanam. Now we have kri, na, because pratyana vikarna shna, we have to first wait for the pratyaya tas to come, because the shna can only come sarvadhatuke. So once the pratyaya tas comes there, then we can bring in shna, anubandha lope na. So we got kri, na, tas. Now we have to remember the good thing of the Paninian way is that yes, we don't require to get new rules, but you recall the old rules. Urvesham sutranam smaranam. That's the important thing. So what we have this, if you recall that we have this which ihalyagoho, sutram ihalyagoho. So let's look at that sutram which already we have studied. So let us, when we did the form over here, jihitaha, that's when we the jyotyadikana, we were doing that. So what does the sutram say? At that time we looked at this sutram, we said shnabhyastayorata eat syat sarvadhatuke kniti haladav natu ghoho. So this is a section which is the 64112. This is again the Paninian system, is that he puts the pratyaya in place in chapter 3, 4, 5. Chapter 3 is dhatoho, 4, 5 is nya pratipadikat, and then he finishes all the angakaryam, etc., all modifications which takes place. So he puts the building blocks are in place, chapter 3, 4, 5, and then chapter 6.4 to chapter 7 is the Angasyadhikara, and then Sandhikaram also before that, after that. So those are all the things for chapter 6, 7, 8. So here is this Sutram Shnabhyastayorataha. And then Ihalyagoho. Now these two rules only apply if the pratyaya following is kit or nit. When we did the form Krinati, at that time the pratyaya tip was a pit sarvadhatukam. That did not become nitvat. But now we look at the dvivachanam, the pratyaya is tas. This tas is an apit sarvadhatukam. So by 1 to 4 sarvadhatukam apit. So shnabhyastyorataha would have come. That would have called for akara lopaha. But next sutram says ihalyagoho. Pratyaya is haladi. Then get the ikaradeshaha. Alontyasya. So we get the ikaradesha instead of the lopa. Actually ata already said, so akaristhani ikaradesha. So the vritti one more time is that, says that when followed by haladi pratyaya, so snabhyastayor ataha eat. Okay, we don't need ataha eat. In place of the akaraha, we get the so ataha, the sthani has already been given by the by ataha coming from the prior sutram. So it is straightforward. We don't need alone test anything here because ata has been said. So the akarasya sthani ikaradesho bhavati sarvadhatuke, but kiniti halado should be kiniti halado natu ghoho. The gu sanya, as you know, is by dada ghvadap. Dhatus of the form da and dha. So kri dhatoho gu sanya nasti. Doesn't have gu sanya, so we can ignore this for the time being. Now, the last time we looked at the sutram, we ignored the shna at that time because we had not studied the sutram, kriyadibhyashna. But now we have to come back and take that part. But the sutram otherwise is well known to us. So one more time, Shnabhyastayor. We don't have an Abhyastamangam right now, so we can leave that now. That at that time we had an Abhyastamangam. Now we have the Shna Vikarana is being used here. So we can say Shnabhyastayor. In this case, Shna ityetasya ataha it syat sarvadhatuke kiniti haladau. That's just what we need. So when we look at this form, kri na taha becomes kri ni taha. So this tas pratyaya is haladi. It is a nitvat. It's nitvat because of sarvadhatukam apit. 1 to 4. The ikara desha and the natvam yatha puram. So we get the natvam and then kri ni taha. So one more time. Here pratyaya tas became nitvat because of sarvadhatukam apit. First of all, tingsh is sarvadhatukam, then sarvadhatukam apit, and that triggered shnabhyasta rataha akara lopaha. But the next sutram says that ihalyagoho. So because this is haladi pratyaya, sarvadhatuk pratyaya, which is nitvat, we get the ikara desha in place of the akara of shna, and we get krinitaha. Now when we come here though, when we get the kri plus g, kri shna g, and then of course jontaha, then anubandha lopaha, so we of shna lashapatante, we get kri na anti. Now the g pratyaya, which becomes anti by jontaha, that is also a sarvadhatuka pratyaya by tingsh is sarvadhatukam, of course, and it is apit pratyaya. So by sarvadhatukam apit, the g is also nitvat, but it is not haladi though. It's not haladi. So in this case, we get shnabhyastayo rataha, akara lopaha. So this is the gist of it, is with the pratyaya following the shna, which right now we only have pratyaya, which is the tiptas g, it has sanya sarvadhatukam. If it is kit nit, if it is haladi, then the shna, the na becomes ni. The akara of shna gets the ikara desha. If it is ajadi, kit nit, then the akara takes lopaha. So shna becomes just nakaraha. So that's the essence of these two rules. So one more time, if the pratyaya following the shna pratyaya is a nit pratyaya, right now we don't have a kit, so we don't have to worry about kit, but if it's nit, basically nit pratyaya, then if it's haladi, then the na will become ni by ikara deshaha, and if it's ajadi, we will get the akara lopaha, the na will become na, nakaraha. And if it's neither kit nit, it's basically if it's a pit pratyaya, then these two don't apply, the na remains as na. So with that we can complete all these tables now. So we have here kri na anti, that anti which we get sarvadhatukam apit nitvat, so na ityetasya akara lopaha become kri na anti, kri nanti, everywhere natvam, sarvatra natvam. Final step is atkapanyam vyavayopi. So there's only the ikarasya vibhadhanam, so there's no problem with this an at letter, it becomes kri nanti. Now krina si pratyaya sip is there, it is not nitvat, so there's no lopaha, there is no ikara deshaha, just krina si. Krinitaha, same prakriya as krinitaha, this also is sarvadhatukam apit, it is haladi, so ihalyakoho, 64113 krinitaha, same thing here. And krina means the pit pratyaya, pit, so it's not nitvat, there is no 64112, no 64113, no lopaha, no ikara desha, just krinami, krinivaha, krinimaha, both of these are haladi, nitvat, so ihalyagoho. When we same thing here, there's nothing new about this. This entire table, there's nothing going to be new now. So krinatu, because we get the ukara deshaha, so yeruhu. So these all these rules we have to practice. As I mentioned too many times, the tiptas g is only a default sutram. It only puts in the default pratyaya. Then we have to look at the remaining part of 3.4 and get all the lakara sambandhi karyani. And the sutram here is this eruhu, that the ending ikaraha of this lot takes the ukara deshaha. Nothing new here. So krinatu, because this is a pit pratyaya, this is no lopaha, no ikara desha, krinatu. So same steps as krinati, except for eruhu. becomes Krinatu. Tatang Pakshe, because we get Tuyos Tatang Ashishya Natrasyam. Tatang is a Nitya. It's also Haladi. So Ihalya Goho 64113. Krini Tat and Nattam Krini Tat by 842. So here, Loto Langvat, Tasastamipam Tam Tam Tamaha, which gets the Tama Desha, Tas gets Tama Desha. It's as before, it is Haladi Nitvat, so we get Ihalya Goho, Krimi Tam. Here the same thing, Krinantu, same as Krinanti. So here we apply the Shnab just to Rataha, and then Eruhu on top of that. Krini Hi, because Serya Picha. Serya picture. The C takes the Hi Adesha, it's apit. It makes it apit. So even though sip was a pit pratyaha, but Sthanivad Bhavaha, Sthanivad Adeshunal Vidhav. So any Adesha which comes, it is Sthanivat. It takes the properties of the item it replaces. This is a very important principle in the Paninian system, that any Adesha, it takes the properties of the item which it replaces. That's called Sthanivad Bhavaha. Sthani is a placeholder. That was the place of the operation. That was the patient in the operation. And if it gets replaced, the Sthani leaves behind its properties for the term that the new person who took office, so to speak. The new office bearer will take the properties of the Sthani. So Sthanivad Adeshanal Vidhav. So by that, the He is a Pit Pratyaha, but because Serya Picha, specifically Panini by 3487 makes apit. So then it's also become Nitvat, and then same thing, it's Haladi, it's Nitvat by Sarvadhatikam apit. So Ihalyagoho, Krinihi, and finally Natvam by Atkapmanyam Vyavayapi, so Krinihi. And it's the same before. Tatang is Haladi, it's Sakshat Nit, so Ihalyagoho there also. These two are the same as this one over here, both Haladi. Apit, Sarvadhatikam apit, Nitvat, Ihalyagoho in both places. Now, we come to Uttapurushaha. Lot, always, when you hear that combination, Uttapurushaha, Lot, Aduttamasya Picha, Aduttamasya Picha, Aduttamasya Picha, Aduttamasya Picha. That should ring in your head. The moment you hear the Lot and Uttam Purushaha, Aduttamasya Picha. So that Lot Pratyaha, in the Uttam Purushaha, it takes the Ad Agama and becomes Pit. So everywhere in the Uttam Purushaha, in Lot, whether it's Atmanipadam or Parasyapadam, doesn't matter. So once it becomes Pit, it is no Nitvat Bhavaha. There is no question of either Shnab Jastorataha or Ihalyagoho. Those two only apply in the Pratyaya following Skit Nit. So this is a Pit by Aduttamasya Picha. So there will be no Lopaha, no Ikara Deshaha. So we are back here. So here we get Krinani by the Mernihi, Krinava by Loto Langvat, and then Nityam Nitaha, Loto Langvat. So those sutras we are not repeating anymore, which is Loto Langvat and Nityam Nitaha. So this ending Sakara Uttam Purusha drops away in Lot, which is down here. Now one thing, bear in mind that even though the Ad is a Pit, Aduttamasya Picha, that does not make the Shna a Pit. Be careful. Ad Agama is coming to the Mip or the Was or the Mas. The Shna Pratyaha remains Nitvat by Sarvadhatikam Pit. So the Kri will not take Guna Adesha, no matter what. But the Shna is intervening here. So Shna is Sarvadhatikam Pit Nitvat. So the Kri will not take Guna Adesha. Only this Mip which became Ni by Made Nihi, that is now became Ani by Aduttamasya Picha. That is a Pit Pratyaha. So there will be no 641112 or 64113. Those will not apply because now the Pratyaya is Pit, it's not Nitvat. But the Kri will not take Gunadesha. That will not happen. Because that depends on the Shna Pratyaya. And the Shna is still Sarvadhatikam Pit Nitvat. Only this Ani and Ava and Ama, they became Pit. I mean, Ani was already a Pit because Mip is a Pit Pratyaha, but it's Ava Ama. So the Kri will not take Gunadesha because the Shna is in between there and the Shna is Sarvadhatikam Pit. The Ad Agama only comes to the Mip or Was or Mas. So that completes this one. Here also nothing special. The usual rules, the Ad Agama everywhere in the Lung because Lung lang rung chudataha, lung lang rung chudataha, 6, 4, 71. So when these three lakaras are used, lung, lung, and rung, then the angam gets the ad agama, that's the final step. So just like krinati here by itascha, because the lakara is a nit, the ending ikara for person with the pratyaya drops. So just like krinati comes krinat by itascha, which is 3, 4, 100. So again, I'll tell you is that this 3, 4, 78 is only a default. Always don't leave 3, 4, 78 unless you finish remaining of 3, 4. And Itashta Sutram says that 3, 4, 100 we have seen prior that if the lakara is a nit lakara, the lakara has the kavarga pancham as a nit, then the ending ikaraha for prasya pratyaya drops. That's 3, 4, 100, 3, 4, 100 itascha. Now all these have already come to you in the daily examples. Again, Kumut is in the class, so thank you Kumut for all the work. Sutram itascha. Okay, let me see if I can find itascha for you. Itascha. The itaha lasya parasmai padam ikarantam yat tadantasya lopaha. So that is why we got the lopa of the ikara here. We got akrinat. And here same thing again, tasastam pam tam tam tamaha. This is haladi nitvat. So we get the ihalyagoho akrinitam akrinan. This will be pratyaya ji. Ji gets chontaha. Then itashchal and sanyukantasya lopa later on. This is a ajadi nitvat. So we get shnabhyastavrataha 64112 akrinan akrinaha. Same thing here. No sip pratyaya is pit. So there's no, it's not nitvat. So no lopaha, there's no ikara adeshaha. And these two are the same as this prior one. Nothing special. Haladi nitvat ihalyagoho. And this is a itashcha here also. It's a pit pratyaya, so not nitvat. So no lopaha, no ikara adeshaha. So when the pratyaya is pit, then the 64112 shnabhyastorataha and 64113 ihalyagoho don't apply. Now here in this case, so here also the only itashcha in this place, and akrinima, both these places, the was and the mas are haladi nitvat apit sarvadhatukam, so ihalyagoho. And of course nityam nitaha at the end. Now we are coming to the end of this thing in the prakaranam, at least with this shuddha dhatavaha. So you'll have the rest of your life to practice all these rules. So please do practice. There's no other way to, because you have to keep on practicing these, and that's what the daily examples are coming to you. So please practice these. So sutram nityam nitaha, yuttam purushaha, ending sakara for nit lakara will drop. I mean, if this was and mas, if they came in place of a nit lakaraha, then the ending sakara drops for them. And in the vidiling, you get the yasut prasnipada shudat to nitya. So everywhere the yasut comes, and that yasut is a nit, so that is immediately going to trigger it's of course haladi. It's going to ihalyagoho everywhere. So kri ni yas is common word with the usual warning that the yasut is an agama to the pratyaya, not to the angam. But samana karyam is kri ni yas, and actually even kri ni ya, because by the sutram linga salopanantyasya, the sakara drops. So kri ni ya is common work, and then itashcha. So everywhere you're going to get the ihalyagoho. Everywhere ihalyagoho. So kri ni ya is common operations. Here itashcha we have tasastam pam tam tam tamaha. Then here just we have over here. So kri ni yuho. Nothing, no new rules. So here tasastam pam tam tam tamaha. Same thing here. And nityam nitaha over here. Krini yava, krini yama. So lingastalopanantyasya. Now Atmanipadam you can practice on your own for homework. There are no new rules. Here also everything is same. So here, barring the Uttapurusha lot, everywhere else you're going to get sarvadhatukam apit. This is the only place in Atmanipadam because of Arthamasvicha in the lot Uttapurusha only. Pratyaya will become pit. Everywhere else it's going to be a pit. So either you're going to get the ihalyagoho or the shnabhyastorataha. If the pratyaya is haladi, you're going to get ihalyagoho, otherwise shnabhyastorataha. So krinite, krinate, all these places, Pita, Pimadaram, Tere, all the old rules. So please practice your homework. This is the table. You should require no other rules except the only new rule is this one for today, which is the Kriyadibhyashna. This is what I'm saying. In a very short span, you were able to run through this Ganaha. There's nothing really special about it. The Shna Pratyaya came in there instead of Apavada for Shap, and then we use the same old two rules, which is the 64112 and 64113. But there's one special rule in this Ganaha, which is an important rule. Again, in this class we don't cover all the rules, but there's one important rule, and that is this one. This is the next rule, which is Halashna Shana Jau. Halashna Shana Jau. Halaha Shnaha Shana Jau. So Halaha. So following a consonant Hal. Halaf Parasya Shnaha. Shanajadeshasya Dhaupare. So what happens is that the Shna is a Shashti Ekvachanam of Shna. The Shna is a Shashti Ekvachanam of Shna. Like we can Vishwapa become Vishwapaha. Like this Ato Dhatoho. That Ato Dhatoho. So what happens is that that sutram, by the way, is the 64140. This the Shnaha. This will, I'm sure it will be a question in your daily examples coming soon. But the Shnaha is a Shashti Ekvachanam. So Shna iti etasya sthane. So in place of Shna, the Shnaha is Shashti Ekvachanam of Shnaha. By the sutram Ato Dhatoho and by the Yoga Vibhagaha being done over here. So even though Shna is not a Dhatu, still Ato Dhatoho has been used by Yoga Vibhagaha. So anyway, that's just a side topic. The sutram says that if this Ganavikarana Shna, if it follows a Hal, if it follows a consonant, and if it is followed by the Pratyaya Hi, it takes the Shanach Adeshaha. Shanach Adesha. So one more time. So we should, the Pratyaya Shna, Ganavikarana Shna, if it is preceded by a consonant, Hal, if it's followed by the Pratyaya Hi, then the Shna takes the Shanach Adeshaha, and by Anekashi Sarvasya, the Adesha Shanach is a Anekal Adesha, it has more than one letter, so replaces the entire Sthani. Shna, so we get the, so the entire Shna goes away, and in place of that, Shanach comes in. Again, when does it happen? When there is a consonant preceding. Preceding is a Hal, and following is a Pratyaya Hi. By the way, Shanach Jau. There's nice Sandhi rules in this sutram. Nice rules here. Shanach Hau. Shanach Jau is by this sutram 8484, I think 62. Jayoho Nyatrasyam. That Hakara of Hi has taken the Jakara Adesha. So there's a Jai letter following, which is the Jakara. So by 8462 we got Shanach Jau. This Jakara Adesha over here is by 8462. But the main thing is that that's not the main topic right now. The main thing here is that, so if the Shna Ganavikarana has a consonant preceding it and the Hi Pratyaya following it, then the Shna takes the Shanach Adesha Anekachi Sarvasya, the entire Shna gets replaced. Now the Hi Pratyaya, of course, is what? Serya Picha. So only in that one single place in the Lot Madhya Purusha Ekavachanam, Parasmi Padam, that's the place where the Hi Pratyaya can be there by Serya Picha, 3487. Otherwise, right now we don't know of any other Hi Pratyaya which can follow Shna. So this rule will only apply in the Lot Madhya Purusha Ekavachanam in Parasmi Padam only. And that too, it will only apply when the Dhatu ends in a Hal, because the Hal has to precede the Shna. So let's take an example. This is a very famous Dhatu. So Grahana Chamimam Pritya Prasida Parameshwari. If you start the chant Devi Kshamapana Stotram, Grahana Chamimam Pritya Prasida Parameshwari. Grahana is a very common form used in puja all the time. Grahana means please accept, please take, so please receive. So Grahana is a very famous form. It is used often. Grahana means please take. It's Lot Madhya Purusha Ekvachanam. This Dhatu Grah Upadani is to take, to accept, to receive. So let's go through the details. Now the ending Akara of Grah is, in fact, I think this is the last Dhatu, Charama Dhatu in the Kriyadi Ganaha. In the Kriyadi Ganaha, this Dhatu Grah Upadani, charam antima dhatu. So antya is the last dhatu in this gana of the graha upadana is the last one. Is swarita it. So swarita gnitah kartravipraye kriyafale becomes ubhaypadi. But this sutram halashnashanajhav, as I mentioned to you, only applies when the pratyaya he follows, and that is only in lot madhyam purusha ekvachanam, only parasya padam, because that's the only place we get the pratyaya he. Let's take the example here. We get grah plus lo. Of course, the ending akara of graha is the anunasikaha. Supadeshe janunasika it tasya lopaha. The first few steps we won't keep on repeating anymore because we get the lot pratyaya sutram lotcha, anubandha lopaha, shakpataditi halantyam, then tiptasji, pratyaya sipkam, halantyam. So these we will not repeat, go in detail anymore. You're getting many examples. Again, thanks to Kumud for all the work. And to Radha. So 3487 we get Serya Picha. The C of a Lord Pratyaha takes the Hi Adesha. Now let's look at the conditions now. We do have the Hakara preceding here. This of course is a Hal, a consonant. The Shna Gana Vikarana is in between here and followed by Hi. Always check all the conditions. As I mentioned to you, is that these vrittis have been composed with enormous care, particularly by Bhattoji Dikshitaha. He spent his entire life, revolutionized the entire science of grammar by fine-tuning all these vrittis and all this Vyakaranam, etc. So please pay respect to him and to his Purvacharya also, and always check the vritti. No sutram is really complete in your mind until you look at the vritti. Of course, sutram has pradhanyam, but with the vritti also you should look at it. So halaf parasya, shnaha. So halaf parasya, we do have the hakara preceding shnaha. In place of shna, this is shashti ekvachanam of shna. Shanajya adeshasya, you'll take the shanaj as the replacement. How pare? So this has been satisfied here. So now the shna takes the shanaj adesha anekachi sarvasya, because the shanaj palashak patadite halantyam ana avashishyate. It's anekala adesha because it has the akara, nakara, akaraha. So it has so trayaha achaha vartante. So trayo achaha vartante. So trayo achaha vartante. So we get, because it has a, na and a, three ach. Trayaha achaha. Trayo achaha vartante. So anekachi sarvasya becomes shanach, and then what happens is that the shanach is sarvadhatukam apit. You see how important sutram is sarvadhatukam apit. It comes all the time. Because many operations are triggered by the pratyaya becoming kit nit. In this case, sarvadhatukam apit becomes nitvat. And then we get the sutram gahijya ityadi. This set of 9 dhatus which you already seen before. They take samprasaranam. Means the yan takes the ikadesha. Samprasaranam is only Igyanas Samprasaranam. So by 6116, Dhatu Grah is first in that list. So now Grah will take Samprasaranam, Refasthasthani Rikaradeshaha. So because this Pratyaya became Nitvat, and therefore we get G, R, H, and then Samprasaranach Puraparayoho Ekadesha is the Purva, is the Pururupam Ekadesha. So when Samprasaranam is done, it kind of gobbles up the following vowel, which makes sense, because otherwise you'll go back to the earlier form. So in place of the rikara and akaraha, puraparyoha ekadeshaha is the pururupam, which is a samprasaranam. So graha, the anubandha lopya of shanach, lashakpatadite halantyam, get grahana, and finally nattam by atkupanyam vayapi in the vartikam ruvarna nattam vachyam. So we get grahana. So this sutram only applies when the dhatu ending in a hal, and only applies in a lot, in the lot madhyapurusha ekvachanam. Basically the shna takes the shanach adeshaha. This sutram also in the same section, the gana vikarana section. So so after here, right here is halashnash shanajhav. Okay, that completes this gana for us. Now let us look at the no, it doesn't. I'm sorry. We have to look at one more rule. Okay. But for the time being, let's go to our Udaharan Suchi. And here we have just put the Graha Upadane. We put the table for you. Thanks to Kumud. And she has put the table here. Now all this is Grishna. Just like Krinati, Krinatu, Grishnatu. There's nothing special in any of these other places. No, of course, Eru over here And then tatang becomes mitvat, ihalyagoho, just as before. Nothing special. Ihalyagoho over here also, shnabhyastarata over here. Only thing special is this madhyapurusha ekvachanam, and that becomes grihana, as we just saw, because the shna takes the shanajadesha. Otherwise, tatang pakshe, no difference. Everything else is all the same. So that's one example. And let's look at another example, which require no new rules, but just smarakam, just to smaranartham. Remember only, just to revive your memory. And that is this very important dhatu nya, the janati. So Mudhojan comes in Gita many places. We can inaugurate Gita for today. Mudhojan na abhijanati loko mamachamabhyam. It comes in many places in Gita. Vedaham samatitani, chapter 7 I think. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani cha. The Gita should always be scanning in your brain at all times. All times should be like the recording playing in your brain at all times. So any point you can connect to the Gita. Always pick it up and make the connection. So it should be, here it is, Mudhojan nabhijanati. Loko mamajamabhyam. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani chachana. Bhavishyani cha bhutani, here it is, nabhijanati. So dhatu nya. So this sutram, only thing here is sutram nya jana or ja. Remember our friends, we had number of friends in this area of 7 dots, shiti parataha. Like our sutram pa, gra, dma, the pa becomes pibati, gra becomes jigrati, etc. Anantaram sutram, next sutram is nya jan or ja. This dhatu nya and the dhatu jan, which you already seen this divadigana, jani pradurbhave. Now this is nya avabodhane. And these two dhatus take the ja adesha, anekachi sarvasya. Anytime you say the word adesha, always think of these 4 rules. Sutra chatushtayam, which is alontyasya, nitya, adef parasya, anekachi sarvasya. They tell you where to put the adesha, sthani. So in the sthani, which part of the sthani gets replaced? Now in nya jan or ja, the ja adesha is anekal. It has two letters in this, jakaraha, akaraha. So it will be anekachi sarvasya. The entire sthani, in this case the dhatu nya, gets replaced by nya jan or ja. So whenever a pratyaya follows which has the talavish shakara as a nitya, shit pratyaya, in that case by nya jan or ja, nya gets replaced by ja, just as in the dhatu jan. It becomes the jayate, imriyate, va kadachin, in the jayate. Same thing there. In the Ganavikarana, shan was following, the jan became ja, same thing here, nya becomes ja. And so we take the form latlakara, we take the pratipurusha ekavachanam, again the usual steps, vartamane, lat anubandha lopaha, kipta ji anubandha lopaha, nyati, and then kriyadi bhyashna. So this becomes shna. And then, because we have the dhatu nya, following is a shit pratyaya, then becomes it the nya anubandha lopaha lashikvatadite tasya lopaha, we get the ja adesha, anekachi sarvasya becomes janati. And there's nothing else, everywhere becomes so like krinati, janati. Same thing then janitaha, jananta. There's nothing else special over here. Only thing the nya taking the ja adesha, the sutram we had already seen. When you study the sutram jani pradurbhava in the divadiganaha, so same thing here when the dhatu nya avabodhane is followed by the shit pratyaya, in this case the shna ganavikaranaha, in that case the nya takes sarvadesha of ja, anekachi sarvasya, by 7.379, nya janor ja. Okay, we need one more sutram. Okay, let's look at one more sutram here. This is also special sutram, vadinam rasvaha. Very, very straightforward, very, very simple sutram, nothing really special. In fact, this is the next sutram. After nya janor ja comes pwadinam rasvaha. This pwadi are these 24 dhatus. So chaturvimshati dhatavaha, 24 dhatus. And they are listed in this gana of this, they are in the, of course, in the kriyadi gana, which is what we're studying right now. So starting from this number 14, and there is one thing about this pwadi gana, there are some partha bhedas here. So you're a little bit careful. I mean, there are some differences in text. The dhatu partha has some different readings. So in this dhatu partha, they may not be exact. There might be something more in between here. So they may not be exactly 24, which says so pwadayaha. Atha pvadayaha. So pvadi starts from dhatu. Dhatu puing, puing pavane. Puing, puna, punati is to make pure, to purify. And there are 24 dhatus here with one little warning is that this dhatu pata has some different readings, differences in text. So the 24 that are given in the document here may not be the exact 24 that you will find in your dhatu pata. But basically these are the 24 given in the Siddhanta Kaumudi here. Is puing, pavane, luin, chedane and so on. These two are quite important dhatus. If anything, probably is dhatu puing. This puing pavane is probably the most important dhatu here. Luin chedane also is there to cut. Lunati is to cut. And then there are others over here which are not that important. So there are these 24 dhatus. Dhatu patha anukramena in the order of the dhatu patha. What happens to them? Rasvaha. Now if you look at the number 7380, we just applied Nyajanorja Shitiparataha. So ayamapi Shitiparataha. Ayamadesho api Shitiparataha bhavati. So this will also happen when he says he says Shiti Rasvaha. So Chaturvimshate Shiti Rasvaha. So a short vowel is substituted, of course, in place of the long vowel of the 24 verbal rules, puing, etc. When the pratyaya following has a tala with shakara as a nit. Right now we have Gana Vyakaranam Shna. So let's look at a quick example, which is the punati. Again, very simple rule. All it says that these 24 dhatus, starting with puing pavane, they will take the rasva desha when the shit pratyaya follows. In this case, the shna Gana Vyakaranam follows. So if you take an example, because this dhatu is a chavarga panchama it, nyit, so by this time you should be familiar with that. So Swaritagnita Kartaviprayi Kriyaphale, essentially it becomes Ubhaypadi essentially. So now when you do the Prakriya, take being in Lat, Vartamani Lat Anubandha Lopaha, Tiptaji Anubandha Lopaha, Kriyadip Jashna Anubandha Lopaha, we get Punati. These first few steps are all common steps, so just went through them very fast. So Punati. Now here, first thing is the pratyashna, of course, as we mentioned many times in the class already. Sarvadhatakam apit, nitvat. So kiniticha ityanena gunanishedha. Gunanishedha. No gunadesha for pu. Always ask, why doesn't the sutram sarvadhataka adhataka yoho apply in this case? Because the obvious reason, which we have seen many times, is because of sarvadhatakam apit, shna pratyaha nitvat bhavati. So now all the conditions satisfied is dhatu puing pavane is here, puing pavane, and then we have the pratyashna following. So this pu takes rasva desha. Rasva is only in place of the ach. Ach only can take rasva desha, and the ending alone kesya, the ending ukara of the yangam will take the rasva desha, becomes punati. That's the only special thing here, nothing other. Once you get the form punati, just like Krinati, you have Punati. So replace Kri by Pu, and this entire table which we had before, everywhere you get instead of Kri just replaced by Pu, you get all the same forms. So Punati, Punitaha, Punanti, and so on and so forth. So there's a famous Vakyam, it's like a Subhashitam, Acharahinam Punanti Vedaha. This is different because Punanti is Bahuvachanam. Vaishnabhyasturata. Acharhinam punanti vedaha. One who doesn't have good conduct, the Vedas cannot purify him. Acharhinam punanti vedaha. So this dhatu is an important dhatu, punanti. So everywhere just replace kri by pu and you can generate the whole table over here. So one more time, the set of dhatus 24 in number with some partha occasionally. They will get the rasva desha, shiti parataha when shna follows. Okay, now that completes the kriyadi ganaha for us. You get a lot of practice for the rest of your life. You can practice. So next ganaha, which is the last ganaha, so it is called the churadi ganaha. That has a peculiar speciality, and that is given by the following, with the next sutram in this document here. Let's look at that sutram. The sutram is 3.125. So now we are moving on to the charama ganaha. Antima ganaha, which is the churadi ganaha, the dhatu patha. Churadi ganaha has now this kriyadi ganaha had only had about 70 odd rules. Churadi ganaha is a bhat ganaha. It has about 400, no, almost 500 rules in churadi ganaha. This is a large gana. It's a Brihadakaraha. It is a large gana. It's almost 500 rules. This one 489. So we definitely want to pay attention to this one. And it is fairly easy. There's nothing really very difficult except for one peculiarity, and that is this pratyaya nich comes swarthe. Swarthe nich. Let's look at the sutram. This is a long musical sutram. Satyapa pasha rupa veena tula shloka sena loma tvacha varma varna churna churadibhyo nich. Can practice that. Punati sakulam natu bhurimanaha. Yes, again one more in Bhagavatam from Prahlada Stuti. This punati sakulam kulam natu bhurimanaha. So so again comes in Bhagavatam, thanks to Ravi, a quote from Bhagavatam. Punati sakulam, purifies the family. Punati sakulam, kulam. Okay, thank you, Ravi. So okay, one more time. Good to practice. Satyapa pasha rupa veena tula shloka sena loma tvacha varma varna churna churadibhyo nicha. That is a long sutram. And as I said to you, the best thing that you can do, if you have limited time, keep on repeating the words of Panini. We all have limited time. So if you have short time, slowly, that's the most optimized, quickest, shortest way, guaranteed way, learning Vyakaranam. Now in this sutram though, for the time we're going to ignore these many terms over here. Satya, Satyapa, Pasha, Rupa, Veena, Tula, Shloka, Sena, Loma, Tvacha, Varna, Churna. Basically these will be used later on by us. We can come back to this one when we talk about Namadhatava. These are Pratipadikani. So this is what happens like Garudayate, Putriyati, you know, all these forms when it's like Vishnu Yati. So basically you take a Pratipadikam and make a dhatu out of it. That is not today's topic, so we will leave it for a later class. Just we say sometime in a sutram, we don't need the whole sutram right now. So we can leave these Pratipadikani, which is this Satya, Pasha, the Satya becomes Satyapa by this Nipatanam. Pasha, Rupa, Veena, Tula, Shloka, Sena, Loman, Tvacha, Varman, Varna, Churna. So these are all going to be for a later class when we talk about Namadhatavaha. For time being, all we need is Churadibhyo Nicha. That may be easier for us. Churadibhyo Nicha. This Churadiganaha. So there is this dhatu of Churadiganaha. It is Pratyaya Nicha. There is no Artha Nirdesha. Artha Nirdesho Nakritaha. Doesn't say in what meaning it takes. That means Swarthe Nicha. This one principle is that when Panini says put this Pratyaya, doesn't make Artha Nirdesha, doesn't give a meaning change. Normally Pratyaya comes and changes the meaning in some way. It transforms. But right now, this particular place, Panini has not given Artha Nirdesha. So that means Swarthe. Iti avagamyate. So that's the commentary here. Churadibhyastu. So ebhyo nich syat. Churadibhyastu Swarthe. These other things, they have the peculiar meanings in which the nich comes. This again not today's topic, we'll take it later on. But Churadibhyastu Swarthe. Churadi will take only Swarthe nich. So what happens is that when you take a dhatu Churadiganaha and you want to use it in any way, not only with the Tingantam, if you want to make a Kridantam out of it, whatever, any Pratyaya, the first thing you have to do is apply this Pratyaya niche to it. That is the speciality of this Churadiganaha. Churadiganaha mandates that immediately the niche Pratyaya is to be added to these. Niche Pratyaya is to be added to these before anything else can be done. Swarthe Nityam, Nitya Karyam, always. So once we do that, rest of it is straightforward for us. There's nothing really special about this Ganaha. But for the Swarthe Niche. Now let's look at quickly in which area of the Ashtadhyaya we are in. Which area of the Ashtadhyaya are we in? We are in section 3125. And now we have used this sutram Kamerning has been used by us. Kamerning like Kamayate, etc. We did Kamerning we have used before. Now this section, if you may recall, from 315, which is the Bhuktij Kidbhyasan, up to this sutram, basically up to Kamerning, these pratyayas is Sanadyanta Dhatavaha. So these when you add the pratyaya san, etc. So starting from 315, this includes this pratyaya nich, just as it includes the pratyaya ning which we added before previously. This is not a new section for us. This samudaya, which is, for example, dhatu chur plus nich, that samudaya will now get a dhatu sanya, which it needs. Otherwise, you cannot bring in a lakara let. You cannot use any of the sutrani of the dhatu adhikara unless you first have dhatu sanya. But dhatu sanya, the dhatu chur has dhatu sanya because of the bhuadayo dhatavaha. So this bhuadi. So those are dhatus which you already have seen. So, but now when we add the pratyaya nich, how can we bring a lakara after that? After adding nich, because dhatu sanya only chur had, not the chur plus nich. We have seen the same thing when we did the form kamayate. So so there also we had a similar situation. So basically these are called derived dhatus, or what we can call as sadhita dhatava, sadhita dhatava. Sadhita means they are derived. So one more time is that, okay, let's look at an example quickly. Example here is, let's look at dhatu chur, which is the first dhatu in this ganaha. So churadi ganaha, churasteye means to steal. So churasteye is to steal. Dhatu patha number, so first dhatu is ganaha. Let's take lat kriti pragaha pratham purusha ek vachanam. Now, as I said to you, before we can do anything else, we have to add churadibhyo nich. Churadibhyo nich, pratyaya nich comes over here. And it is swarte. Now, nich is sanya of ardhadhatukam because of ardhadhatukam sheshaha. Because remember, we are in the dhatu adhikara. Don't forget that. We are in the dhatu adhikara. Because we already dhatu has started from back here, from the 3122 itself. We have dhatu re kacho halade kriya samabhihare yang. Dhatu start from back there. So dhatu iti vihitaha, but ting chid bhinnaha. It's neither ting nor a shit pratyaya. So nich gets sanya of ardhadhatukam, and then we get anubandha lope chutu halantyam tasya lopaha, and then we get chori by puganta laghupatasya cha. Because the nich can definitely cause the guna adeshaha by puganta laghupatasya cha. Now chori gets a dhatu sanya. Chori gets dhatu sanya by sanadyanta dhatavaha, because we use the sutram 3125, which is in the section from 315 to 3131. So this samudaya chori gets the dhatu sanya by sanadyanta dhatavaha. Now the question comes is that this dhatu chur is in dhatu patha, but chori is not in dhatu patha. So derived dhatu. Now how do we know whether it use atmane padam or parasmay padam? So we don't know, because it is not, none of the rules that we normally apply can be applied here. So as a default, we should have used sheshat kartari parasmay padam. So that is of say sheshat. So that say that as if nothing else, then parasmay padam is to be used sheshat kartari parasmay padam by 1378. But the special rule over here. Now, when we did the kamer ning, just to go back to kamer ning for a second, which is not today's topic, but just to go back there for a second, we did kamer ning. That had the kavarga panchama as a nit kamer ning. So that time we used atmanipadam, anudatmita atmanipadam. But for nich, there's no anubhas, so there's no nimittam for atmanipadam. Nimittam atmanipadasya nimittam nasti. So we would have to go to sheshat kartari parasmay padam, and only parasmay padam would have normally been used. But there's a special sutra, nichascha. So now we're going deeper and deeper in the section of 1.3. We are starting from anudatmita atmanipadam, padavyavastha. We are making more and more friends in this territory now of the padavyavastha, means to get atmanipadam, parasmay padam. So anudatmita atmanipadam, we know today I also mentioned to you on the side parivyavebhya kriyaha. I think we also saw bhujo navane, which is coming somewhere down here. We also saw, so I think we have seen one or two more over here. Bhujo navane, bhujo. We have miryate lung lingoscha we saw, right? So then, and then bhujo navane we have seen. Of course, we have seen the sutram, which is Suritajnita Kartavipraya Kriyafale, Suritajnita Kartavipraya Kriyafale, and now we are seeing the sutram Nichascha. So looking at the number itself, we should be able to tell. It's telling us some situations in which Atmanipadam should be used following Nijanta Dhatu. What does it say? Let's look at it. It says that, look at, we already are familiar with this sutram, Svarita Gnitaha Kartravipraya Kriyafale. So same thing is going to happen over here. Just like a dhatu which is a Svarita it, or the Chavarga Panchama is an it, similarly, a dhatu which ends in the Nich Pratyaya, that will also take Atmanepadam Kartravipraya Kriyafale. Now, as we have commented many times, is that the distinction of Kartraviprayam, is not followed strictly in the language. So basically speaking, these dhatus which in the pratyaya nich, they will become ubhayapadi. But now there are some special rules below which we will not see today. Maybe in the next class we might look at some of them. Is when the pratyaya nich is ending in nich, then under certain meanings and certain dhatus, they will take only parasmapadam. And so we have to be careful. And in fact, there's also some will not take parasmapadam. So there are more complicated rules for dhatus ending in a nich, when to take atmanepadam, when to take parasmapadam. They are coming down here. We might see one or two in the next class. But for the time being, let's look at only this one sutram right now, which is nichascha. So as a first stop, we had sheshat krati parasmapadam. But nichascha says that kartravipraya kriyafale atmanepadam. So essentially, these dhatus are now open to take both parasmapadam and atmanepadam because of nichascha. Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at it over here. So nichascha nijanta atmanepadam syat kartrigamini kriyafale. So verbal roots are ending in the nich pratyaya shall take atmanepada pratyaya when the kriyaphalam is kartraviprayam, otherwise parasmapadam. But this distinction is not very strong. So essentially they will now take parasmapadam or atmanepadam, but with the warning that there are special rules down here which are going to further dictate when the dhatu ends in nich, what should we take. If you want to study on our own little bit, you can look at this 1386, 87, 88, 89. Look at these rules. I think 90 also. So those are the rules which we may see next time. Okay, but for today, now we are open to take either one. Let's just take a simple example. We can take parasmapadam, and so far we formed this new dhatu chori, sadhita dhatu, derived dhatu, because swarthe nich, without changing any meaning. Chora. So chorayati means when he steals himself. No change in the meaning, chorayati. So you get chori plus lat. So this chori got a dhatu sanya. So then we can use this vartamani lat. Vartamani lat come in the section of dhatoho. So we could not use that unless chori got the dhatu sanya. So you get chori plus lat by vartamani lat. Usual steps, anubandha lopaha, tiptashji, anubandha lopaha. Now, kartari shap. Nothing can stop shap now. That's why I told in the beginning itself, don't say that shap is the vikaranaha only for the bhavadiganaha. Don't say that, because shap is the default. The kartari shap, Panini did not say, it's for bhavadiganaha. That was set as the default, utsarga. So here kartari shap only will apply. So there is no apavada for kartari shap in this case. There was no sutram which says churadibhya something else. Nothing, or nichaha something else. Didn't say that. So we only take kartari shap. Of course, sarvadhatuke kartari shap. Now anubandha lope akaraha yashakpatadite halantyam akara vishishyate. Then gunadeshaha by sarvadhatuka ardhadhatuka yoho becomes chore, and then echo yava becomes chorayati. So one more time, when we had the dhatu chori, add the pratyaya tip by the usual steps, and we get, then in came kartari shap, sarvadhatuke kartari shap, because pratyaya tip, of course, is sadhya of sarvadhatukam by ting shit sarvadhatukam. Right now we're only talking about kartari prayoga only. Yeah, of course, I should mention that a few times. We're only talking kartari, active sense. So the shap anubandha lopaha lashakvatadite halantyam, then akara vashishyate, and then after that guna adesha for the yangam, alontasya sarvadhatukarthaka yoho, chore, and then echo yavayavaha chorayati. Now, once you get the angam choraya, then it will follow all the same things as bhavati. When the dhatu bhu became bhavati, just replaced bhava by choraya. So we don't need to look at any further rules. As far as fulfilling the table over here, for this one, because once the shap comes in between, it creates the angam, chora, ya. Then the rest of it, there's no need to go in detail, because you're going to get just like bhavati, bhavataha, bhavanti, bhavasi, bhavataha, bhavata, bhavami, bhavavaha, bhavamaha. So this is nothing special, nothing new. Just replace the angam bhava by chora, ya. And all the same rules. So we won't do this in the class. There's no point doing the class right now, because you've got plenty examples that came to you. So once the angam chora is formed, there is no need to go into any further details, because all the same rules. Samana prakriya. Yatha bhudhatoho. Same tadvad atrapi. Same thing over here also. Tateva vartate. So like bhavatu chorayatu, bhavatam chorayatam, bhavantu chorayantu. So all of these are the same. Same thing like, bhavet chorayet, abhavat achorayat, abhavan achorayan. Same thing. And then, in Atmanipadam, just like labhate. Labhate, labhete, labhante, labhase, labhete, labhadve, labhe, labhavahe, labhamahe. Same thing here, chorayate, chorayete, chorayante, chorayase, chorayete. So all the same rules as we saw in the Bhvadiganaha. The same rules are coming here. Like, ato dirgho yai, the tita atmanipadanam tere, all the same rules, nothing really special, So only thing is to form the angam choraya. And in atmanipadam, it become like labhate, labhete, labhante, chorayate, chorayete, chorayante, etc. And in the Panasyapadam, it become like bhavati, bhavata, bhavanti, chorayati, chorayataha, chorayataha, chorayanti, ityadi. So that's the good news, because the same Vyakaranam shap came in here, and once we form the shabantam angam, then the prakriya samana. So shesham samanam, all is the same. So one more time, the only speciality that we've seen so far of this churadi dhatavaha is the swarte nicha, then yatha yogyam. You have to do the angakaryam. In this case, we had sarvadhatuka ardhataka yoho. You may have achodniti. Let me remind you of these two rules. Achodniti, you may have atopadhayaha. Like, so these rules which apply, it's only angakaryam, which I've seen before. They may apply depending on what the dhatu is, if ending in a ach, or the upadha is an ach, or whatever it might be. Upadha is an akara, I should say. So in addition to sarvadhataka ardhataka yoho and puganta lagu patasya cha, you have to watch out for achodniti and atopadhayaha. If angam is in a ach, or the angam has the akara as an upadha, then these two will also, one of these two will apply. But after that, once you form nijantam angam, then you don't need to do anything else, remaining in the same prakriya as the Bhvadiganaha. Now let's look at one rule over here, a couple of rules, which is an important set of dhatus in this ganaha. They end in akaraha. So normally when you have a dhatu like churastheye, we just looked at one churastheye, that ending akara, antyakara, had the it sanya by upadeshe janunasika it. But there is this set of 100 odd dhatus at the end of the churadi ganaha, which actually end in akaraha. They're not, it doesn't have the it sanya. So antyasya akarasya it sanya nasti. Akarantaha dhatavaha patithaha. So ete dhatavaha. Akarantaha patithaha. So from starting with dhatu katha. From dhatu katha, say look in dhatu pada, it gives a caption, heading, athadantaha. Atha adantaha, athadantaha. So starting from this dhatu katha, vakya prabandhe, you to narrate, to tell, to compose, or to propound. So they are, so this is actually the dhatu part. I think we should probably make a change over here. This katha, this should not be, this ending is not anunasika. I think this dhatu part, I think we need to change this. So katha is not ending, because otherwise you get the is sanya. Upadesha janunasika it. So Ravi, do you know about this? Why they have this as anunasika over here? Looks like an error to me, but anyway. So this any akara of katha is not a it letter. So it should not be marked with the anunasika like that, because it is not, otherwise it will go away by upadeshij anunasika it. So these are these 100 about, because this is number 389 katha vakya prabandhe, and then this gana adds about dhatu word, as we saw before, about 489 dhatus. So I think about this 101 dhatus. So this is a big section. It's a big section of the Churadi Ganaha, almost like more than 20%. More than 20% of Churadi Ganaha, these dhatus end in akara. Now, what difference does that make? Let's see what happens now. So let's take this dhatu katha vakya prabandhe. So what happens is that when we because it's dhatu katha, so I put a note over here, is that the ending akara of katha is not anunasika, does not get the it sanya. So it actually, the dhatu is katha, not katha. It's not halanta dhatu. It's a akaranta dhatu. It's katha. So now as we just saw, because the dhatu is in the churadi ganaha, we'll have to first apply churadibhyo nichya, which is the 3125. No dhatu can be used from churadi ganaha unless you first apply churadibhyo nichya. So what happens then is that we got katha plus nichya, 3125. Now comes a important but very simple rule which says ato lopaha. Ato lopaha. Look at the number 6448. Let me remind you that we are now in this adhikara of ardha dhatuke. Ardha dhatu. It's a very important adhikara. We have seen this sutram, which is the bhumastha gapa jahati samhali. The sutram we have seen from this adhikara. And here we have this sutram now, which is ato lopaha. Very, very straightforward, simple sutram. We say adantasya angasya lopasyat adhatuke pare. So if you have an angam, we are in the angasya adhikara. Don't forget, from 641 to end of 74 is the adhikara of angasya. So if you have an angam ending in a akaraha, then angam takes lopaha, means alontyasya. 1152. The ending akara of the angam takes lopaha. When does that happen? Ardhadhatuke. When the pratyaya following a sanya of ardhadhatukam by ardhadhatukam sheshaha. For that's the sutram that we know for right now. So one more time, ardhadhatuke adantasyangasya lopa bhavati. Let's look at the vritti of this one. So what do we have right now? We have this dhatu katha, which ends in a akaraha. As I mentioned to you, this is not any akara, is not a it. So katha plus nich got sanya of ardhadhatukam by ardhadhatukam shesha, because nich has been prescribed by 3125. It's the dhatu adhikara which started from 3122. So it is dhatu iti bhitaha tingshit bhindaha pratyaha tasmat tasya ardhatukam sanya labhyate, ardhatuka sanya labhyate. It gets the sanya of ardhadhatukam. So we do have an angam ending in a akaraha, followed by pratyaya which is sanya of ardhadhatukam. So angasya lopa bhavati by alontyasya, we get the kat plus nich, kat plus nich, kat plus nich. Now in the vritti of this sutra it says ardhatukopadeshe yad adantam tasyato lopa ardhatuke. Siddhanta Kaumudi, Bhattuji Dikshita has put one more small condition here. He says ardhatikopadeshe yad adantam. It should be adantam at the time when the pratyaya was prescribed. Now this is something which you need in very rare conditions. In very rare conditions, what happens is that after the pratyaya comes, then the angam becomes adantam. In those rare situations, we should not use ato lopaha. But for the time being, we can ignore this part of it. We can just take this much. Yad adantam tasya ataha lopa ardhatuke. So this one is just to cover some rare situations where after the pratyaya is prescribed, the angam becomes adantam. That only happens very rarely. So for the simple thing is that as long as the angam is adantam, following pratyaya sanya of ardhadhatukam, the angam takes lopa alontyasya, any akara takes lopaha. But this extra condition is that it should be adantam when the pratyaya was prescribed. Okay, so when a pratyaya follow with sanya of ardhadhatukam, the ending akara of the angam is elided. Which angam ends in the akara. So we have now what do we have? We have kath nich because of ato lopaha. Very important sutram. Very important sutram. Very simple sutram. Ati sarlam, ati mahattapurnam api. Very simple, very important. Ato lopaha, ato lopaha, ato lopaha, ato lopaha, ato lopaha. Ardhadhatuke, ardhadhatuke, ardhadhatuke. Okay, so we have kath nich. Now at this point, ato upadhayaha wants to come and do the vrittya adesha, wants to make it kath. Akarasya vriddhir adesha prapyate. Vriddhya adesha prapyate. So this akara of katha, madhyavarti akaraha, is now going to be subject to vriddhi by ato upadhayaha. Because pratyaya following is a nit. Now ato upadhayaha wants to make it kath. Now we don't want to get the form kath, we get form kathayati. Is the ishtam rupam is kathayati, not kathayati. Now how would we manage that? How do we manage to avoid ato upadhayaha? Now you understand why Panini has made these dhatu adanta dhatavaha. Tasya prayojanam. Prayojanam kim? Prayojanam is to avoid the ato upadhaya in this case. In this case there is no ato upadhayaha. So to shield this from this ato upadhaya. Now how do we know that? But because we have the angam kath and the akara is the upadha right now. So here comes a very important paribhasha. It is a little bit klishta paribhasha, slightly it is a little bit complicated. So please pay attention to this paribhasha. It's an important paribhasha. Look at the number 1157. Now we already know the sutram 1156, which is Thanivadadesho nal vidhau. So 1156 says Thanivadadesho nal vidhau. Any adesha, a substitute replacement which comes in, it is Thanivad. It behaves like the Sthani, like the term is replaced. But anal vidhau, we cannot invoke a particular letter of the term which got replaced. And taking recourse to that, we cannot use a vidhi. So a vidhi cannot come and look at a letter of the Sthani which got replaced and start applying. So Sthanivad bhava is there, but anal vidhau. Not when it comes to applying a vidhi which depends on a specific letter of the term which got replaced. Anal vidhau. Right now what do we have? We have we have kath nich. The lopa is also an adesha. It's a zero, it's an adesha. So lopa, which is a zero, is Sthanivad bhava. But we cannot say the akara is still present there because that's a specific letter of that. So we could not have used Sthanivad adeshanal vidhau to get the Sthanivad bhava for the akara over here. The akara will not come back by Sthanivad bhava. So that's a al vidhi. So if we have to apply vidhi, right now we want to examine whether atopadhaya should apply or not. That will depend on whether this ending akara has really gone or it is there by Sthanivad bhava. If the akara is there by Sthanivad bhava, then the upadha becomes thakaraha. Upadha is penultimate letter. Upadha is penultimate letter. So then if the akara is actually gone, then the upadha is the akara and we should apply atopadhaya. If the akara is there by Sthanivad bhava, then we cannot apply atopadhaya. So but this sutram Sthanivadadeshanal vidhau could not be used to get the akara in there because it says anal vidhau. There is an exclusion here. Anal vidhau is said. So we cannot now say that the akara is still there, so we will not apply atopadhaya. We cannot do that. Sthanivad bhavaha by 1156 has an exclusion of anal vidhau. So that specific akara cannot be got back by Sthanivad bhavaha. So therefore, with that background, we understand the importance of the next sutram, which is what we need right now. Achaf Prasan Pura Vidhau. This is an important sutram, slightly complicated. So please pay attention that why we require this sutram. Let's go to the vritti, which Bhatturi has nicely composed. It says that Paranimittu Ajjadeshaha. Okay, let's take it step by step. There should have been an adesha, a substitution, being made which has been done in place of an ajjadesha, ajsthani adesha. What do we have right now? We had the ato lopaha. The akara at the end of katha took lopaha. That lopa also is an adesha of zero. So yes, we did have an ajjadesha, ajsthani adesha. In the place of akara, we got lopa. That's the first condition. Paranimitto ajjadesha. Then sthanivat bhavati. Kada bhavati? When sthani bhutat achaha purvatvena drishtasya vidhau kartavye. Okay, vidhau kartavye. When a certain operation is to be done, when a certain operation is to be done, what kind of operation is to be done? Is that sthanivat bhutad achaha purvatvena drishtasya. This ach akara was here. If an operation has to be done prior to it, in English to the left of it, to the left of that ach, then and only then does that ajjadesha, it is sthanivat. It is sthanivat means that akara, there is no anal vidha or anything over here, so the akara actually is as if present there. So one more time, there should be an ajjadesha. Paranimittaha. The nimittam for the ajjadesha should be param, which means that this nich was a nimittam for the ajjadesha. The ajjadesha was because of the nich, because remember I told you ato lopaha ardhadhatuke. So only because nich had sanya of ardhadhatukam did we get ato lopa. We could apply ato lopaha. So this ajjadesha, paranimittakaha, the nimittam for that is something which follows, which is the nich in this case. So the ajjadesha has to be caused by something which follows. That's number one. And that adesha, which is a 0, becomes sthanivat, like the item it replaces, in this case the akara. So basically that 0, lopaha, looks like an akara now when some operation is to be done to the left of it. Purvat when something wants to operate on this portion, this katha portion, then this 0, lopaha, which was the adesha in place of akaraha, is going to take on the form akara which it replaced. Because that ajjadesha of paranimittakaha, it came because of nich, because the nich which follows was the cause, the nimittam for the ajjadesha. That lopaha is by sthanivat bhava is going to become the akara now, because we are thinking about operation atopadhayaha. It's going to act to the left of it. It's a bit of a complicated sutram, but keep this in mind. This beautiful vritti is given here. Paranimitto ajadesha. Ajadesha is a substitute replacement in place of a vowel acha. It is sthanivat, so that 0, which is the adesha lopaha, it is sthanivat. It will basically become the akaraha. When sthani bhutad achaha means sthani bhutad achaha. So this ach which was the sthani, prior to that purvatvena drishtasya vidhau kartavye. So when an operation is to be done on an element which is prior into the left of the ach which got replaced. So here this ending akara of katha got replaced by 0, lopaha. To the left of that we are considering the operation atupadhayaha. So and that ajjadesha, the nimittam for that was the nich. So the ajjadesha is paranimittaha, and it is now we are looking at an operation, a possible operation of atopadhayaha, which is going to do something to the left of, so which is purvam, to the sthani bhutadachaha, to the which got replaced. So in that case, that 0, that lopaha, which is the ajjadesha, gets sthanivat bhavaha. It becomes akaraha again. So as far as atopadhaya is concerned, that 0, that lopa is going to look like an akaraha to it. When that happens, now the angam becomes katha, goes back to katha as far as 72116 is concerned. So it does not see a upadha akaraha. 72116 now sees the thakara only as upadha. Cannot apply. Okay, let's go to one last time. The dhatu is katha. Katha vakya prabandhane. So this dhatu is there. This dhatu does the ending akara of this, so vakya prabandhe. The ending akara of this dhatu is not an it, is not anunasikaha. It is actually ending in akara. So this does not get lopaha by upadesha jananasika ita. Okay, so and then ato lopaha ardha dhatuke. When we add the pratyay nich, of course swarthe nich is dhatu churadi ganaha. Then we get the ending akara of this katha goes away, becomes katha. At this point, ato upadhaya wants to come and apply because the upadha of the angam kat is akara. But by this paribhasha sutram, achaf parsim pura vidhau is when ajyadesha is done based on something which follows, which is the nich. That ajyadesha, in this case a lopa, the zero, will get sthanivat bhavaha, will look like an akaraha in the eyes of a vidhi is trying to operate to the left of the akara which got replaced. So atopadhaya wants to come to the vriddhi adesha, make it kath, but that sees the akara back there because of 1157 achaf prasim pura vidhau, because the operation that is attempting to do an operation prior to the akara which got replaced. So then in the eyes of 72116 the angam is still katha, it does not get katha. So in the eyes of 72116 the upadha is thakara only, so it cannot apply. Okay, I put all this in the note over here. The nishpratyaya would do vriddhi substitution for the akara by the atopadhayaha. It does not happen because as far as the achaf prasim pura vidhau, the lopa done by ato lopa has sthanivat bhavaha. It behaves like the term it replaced, the akaraha. When it comes to the operation vriddhi, that would be performed to the left of it. So atopadhaya does not apply. It's a very important sutram. Please pay attention to this. It's not a very simple sutram. It has some conditions. Pay attention to vritti, and this is one thing which you want to keep in mind. So okay, so then once we get the angam kathi, so basically now once the atopadhaya is stopped, nothing special, we get the form kathi, and then after we get, anubandha lopa chutu halantyam and kathi, and then when kathi gets the dhatu sanya, and then here again we apply the sutram nichaschit can take, parasepadam, atmalipadam, but we look at parasepadam right now. Vartamane, lat, etc. We apply this. That's just like chori becomes chorayati, kathim becomes kathayati. Once you get the angam, shesham sarvam samanam, puravat. So kathi becomes kathayati. Now, as I mentioned, there are these set of 100 dhatus, like gana becomes ganayati. So it's an important section. So please remember this sutram, ato lopaha, achaf prasim pura vidhau. And if you see this atopadhaya not being done with dhatuhu, then look at this section of kathadayaha. So that is the adantaha dhatavaha. So that is one thing. Okay, now the good news is that now that we learned about this pratyaya nich, we have 15 minutes left over here, we can now start using the causative forms because of the fact that right after this sutram, which is the churadibhyo nich, which is swarthe, the next sutram says hetumaticha. In the causative sense, the same pratyaya nich is used, not following only churadi ganas, but any dhatu, samanyana vihita. So now we can use any dhatu of any gana in the causative sense and start forming those forms, which is going to be very, very powerful for us now. But for that, we need to find out what is this term called hetu. Hetumati vyapare. This sutram hetumati says that when you have a vyapa, an action which involves causation, then the pratyaya nich is to be used following any dhatu. For that, let's see what is this term hetu. What does hetu mean? So now we're going to the karaka section just very briefly. We will look at it very detailed later on, maybe after a year or so. But right now, let us just try to get this sanya hetu in our head. What does hetu mean? Before we can define hetu, we need to define the sanya called karta. Who is a karta? I mean, it's kind of intuitive for us that the doer of an action is karta. But in terms of technical terms, sutram is swatantra karta. Look at the number 1454. Bit of a new section for us. We need a new visa to come here. So this is a new section for us. We may not have come here before. This section called karake. This is an important topic. It's only right now we're only using a small bit of this topic because we need to define the hetu sanya, because the causation. How does Point define causation? Because we will start using the pratyaya nich after any dhatu in the sense of causation. So this sense of karake, this karakas, what is a karaka? Is something which is the, which a part of the action. Anything which contributes to the action, which participates in the action, conducive to the action, that is called a karaka, an element of the action. So this in this section, Panini defines the various elements of the action and what, which one is defined how. That is not the main topic for right now. So we will take what we need for the time being. We'll come back to this topic in great detail afterwards. Right now we need sutram swatantra karta. Very straightforward sutram, not very complicated. There are some technical details behind it. For time being, let's look at simply what karta means is that kriyayam swatantrena vivakshito artha karta syat. Swatantrena. So in an action, the one which is independent to act, the principal actor, independent act, without which there is no action. Everything depends primarily depends on it or on he, she, it. That is called the karta. Like we say, Ramena Vali Hataha. So Ramaha Valinam Jaghana. So Ramaha killed. Now Ramaha is the main part of the action. He is the kill. Without Ramaha, there is no action. I mean, not in the Vedantic sense, but in this sentence. So Ramaha, Ramo Valinam Hanti. You can say Ramaha Banena Valinam Hanti. Ramaha killed Vali with an arrow. You say then Ramaha, say Kishkindhayam, you can say, or Vane, we can say, wherever it might be. Kishkindhayam Valinam Jaghana. Where did Rama kill Vali? So this, he killed, so Ramo Banena Kishkindhayam Valin Jaghana. So he killed Vali with an arrow in Kishkindha. So this arrow and Kishkindha and even Vali, they are secondary to the action. Without Rama, there is no killing action. He is the primary, the main element of the action. Everything depends on him. He will use the instrument, the location, the etc., who to kill. Without him, there is no action. So it says that whatever, and now remember one thing, vivakshataha karaka, so karakaha bhavanti. So it depends on the desire of the speaker. Because the speaker may have said, Banena Vali Hataha. The speaker might choose to say like that. He may want to make the Bana as the Karta. That's the speaker's choice. So we can say, like the pan cooks, sthali pachati. We know that the pan doesn't cook, somebody cooks with the help of the pan, but the speaker has a choice to say that. So this karakas depend on the will of the speaker, how he wants to frame the sentence. So he can say sthali pachati or Vali banena hataha, that's his choice. But if you say the sentence Ramaha Valinam Hanti, then he becomes the main topic of the action. Without him, there is no action. Other thing are the instrument, the location, and for whose purpose the action was done, all that is later. For time being, this is a simple definition of who or what is the karta. Kriyayam swatantrena vivakshito arthaha. Karta, vivakshita, because it depends on the vivaksha or the intention of the speaker. Vivakshito arthaha karta syat. Whatever the speaker chooses, the independent principal source of an action is called karta or agent. I think Ravi is saying karakani bhavanti, is it? Okay. Vivakshataha karakani bhavanti. Okay, I'm sorry. So I think karakam is used. I think karaka is an adjective, but maybe napumsakam, samanya napumsakam, so it should be used. Yeah, I guess. Thank you, Ravi. I think I misquoted that. Vivakshataha. Yes, sorry. Thank you, Ravi. Vivakshataha karakani bhavanti, not karakaha bhavanti. I think karaka is an adjective, but yes, I think it's napumsakalingam. So vivakshataha. Thank you, Ravi. Karakani bhavanti. Karakani bhavanti. So these karakas, they depend on the karta, the karta, karma, adhikaranam, they all depend on the intention of the speaker. So correction, vivakshataha karakani bhavanti. Okay, so that is the karta, the principle, the main item on which the action depends. Without him, there is no action. So the independent, he's also independent. He chooses to act. So the independent principal source is called karta. Now what is hetu then? Tat prayojako hetushcha. means kartuhu, means tat prayojaka means kartru prayojakaha. So look at this anantaram, this is the next sutram, 1455. So kartuhu prayojako hetu sanyaha kartru sanyascha syat. So now this hetu is someone who propels somebody to do something else. If we can say balakaha patati, the boy reads. You can say pita balakam pathayati, he makes the boy read. So boy is a doer, but behind him there is somebody who is giving the prerana, the instigation or the inspiration or the propelling of the action. That member, it gets the sanya of hetu and as well as the sanya of karta. Gets both sanya. Now one can argue, now the boy should no longer be the karta, because now the father is making him read. That's true, but he does still have some swatantriyam, avashishyate, tasyapi swatantriyam avashishyate swatantriyam. Because he can still choose not to read. Ultimately the boy has to read, not the father. Father, I mean, we all know that, right? He made them do homework. Ultimately the boy has to do homework. So yes, the father is a karta, because he is propelling now somebody else to act. So he is definitely an important part of the action, principal part of the action, but so is the boy. Because the boy may not want to do homework. If the father says do homework, he may not want to do homework. So that boy also has the karta sanya, and so does the father. But the father has a special sanya, which is the hetu sanya, because he is now not acting directly as such. He is only doing the propelling or the instigating, or in this case maybe scolding, to get the boy to act, to do his homework. So tat prayojako hetushcha kartuho prayojako hetusanya kartusanyascha syat. The one that propels the karta gets this karti sanya of hetuho. So one more time, the karta in action is someone who has independence, the principal part of the action on which everything depends on the action. Without him there is no action. And then if there's somebody behind him who is instigating him, propelling him, urging him to act, that entity also is the principal part of the action. He is a karta, like a boy. Good example is the father makes the boy read. The father is also a karta, so is the balakaha, but the pita has also the sanya of hetu. Balaka only has karta sanya, while the pita has the hetu sanya now. And then comes hetumati cha, which is the next sutram after churadibhyo nich, and this says that prayojaka vyapare preshanado vache dhatur nichya. The same pratyaya nichya can come after any dhatu when prayojaka vyapare, prayojakaha, when this person is somebody, not person or thing, is urging, propelling, pushing somebody to act. It's such a vyapara, an action which in hetumati vyapare basically. It's an action which involves this hetu. In that case, pratyaya nich is used after root, and preshanado vache. It's example preshanam. If somebody goes, now like the master makes the servant go, he directs him, he sends him. So preshanam is a kind of an example of an action where there is this hetuman vyaparaha. Where somebody is going, the servant takes the message, whatever, but the master makes him go. Preshayati means he sends him, he directs him, he makes him go. So it's like preshanadav, as in sending, directing, etc. In those kinds of action, when that is the intended meaning, then this dhatu used in that sense, in that kind of action, takes the pratyaya nichya. Simply in English we call it causation. Somebody is causing somebody to act. That is the hetu. Hetu is the cause. So it's called causative. The affix nature is used after a verbal root. Doesn't say which root. So for any dhatu in general, when the operation of a causer, such as the operation of directing, is to be expressed. Don't forget the hetu also has the karta sanya. Why do we need that? Because of the lakarma chakar kebhya, right? So that is we need to be, that lakaraha can only be used kartri or karmani. So unless the by 3469 lak karmani cha bhave cha karma kebhyaha, so they can be used kartari or karmani. So unless the hetu has the kartri sanya also, we cannot use a lakaraha in agreement with that hetuhu, because it can be used in the sense of lakara can only be used kartri, karmani, and of course bhavi also, karmakebhyaha. So we need the kartu sanya for the hetu also. Otherwise, we cannot use a lat with that to lakara to agree with that in connection with that hetu. So now, once we form this framework, the rest of it is straightforward. Take a dhatu bhu. The way they say bhavantam prerayati bhavayati. Somebody is being. Now somebody else or something else is causing this thing to be. See, causes to be. So bhavantam prerayati. Somebody, ultimately that other thing has to be. You cannot make the boy do homework. The boy has to do homework. But let's say, so bhavantam prerayati bhavayati. Somebody who's being, bhavantam is this bhavat pratipadikam, shatrantam, present participle. Bhavantam is the Ditya ekvachanam of the shatrantam pratipadikam bhavat, not bhavantam in the sense of you, sir, not the davatu pratyantam, but the shatra pratyantam is being. So somebody propels somebody who's being, or something, means something, somebody causes someone to be. Bhavayati. So now we take the dhatu bhu, pratama dhatu, when the dhatu, prasiddha, bhu sattayam, kartari, but hetumati now. Hetumati. So yes, he is a karta, but this is the hetumati vyapara. It's hetu, he is the hetu also. So we get, now once we do that, then bhu plus nich, this time by hetumati cha. Not churadibhyo. Churadibhyo was only swarte nich, only for those dhatu in churadi ganaha. This can be after any dhatu. It has to be a hetuman vyaparaha, but that's connection. Should be connected with the hetu. This should be in agreement with the hetu now. So okay. So bhu plus nich, bhu plus anubandha lopa chutu alantyam, acho niti, echo yavaya. The angakaram is samanyam, nothing special. Bhu becomes bhavi by the acho niti, echo yavaya. Once you form bhavi, like bhavayati, bhavayata, like chori, chorayati, chorayata, etc. That is so nothing. This angam has to, once you form this, not angam, sorry, this is a dhatu, sanadyanta dhatavaha. Once you form that, then samanam, shesham samanam. Shesham samanam. Okay, now, okay, we're running out of time already. Okay, I don't want to rush too much. We'll do this. Let me give this couple of homeworks. Now these couple of special rules come in the sense of when this pratyaya, this nich is used, ni is used, there's some angakaryani, and the 7336 and the 6492. These are both important rules, particularly 6492. And this Ganasutram, which is also coming Dhatu Patha. We will stop in about 2 minutes now. I'll just mention these for homework for you. So this Sutram says that the Puk Agamaha comes after certain Dhatus, and also any Dhatu ending in Akaraha takes the Puk Agamaha Nauparataha. Ratam Sthapayamechuta. Shtagati Nivrittau. Ratam Sthapayamechuta. So for homework, look at Sutram 7336. It prescribes the Puk Agama for certain dhatus, and any other dhatu ends in a Akaraha, Adanta dhatu. So Tasmad, Tasya Puk, Nauparata. That's 7336, excuse me. Then comes this Sutram, which is Mitam Rasvaha. Very important Sutram. Some of these dhatu which are marked with Makaras and It, they take the Rasva Deshaha when the Nauparataha. This basically undoes the operation which was done, like for example the Atopadhayaha, like Asatoma Sadgamaya. Why not Gamaya? Why do we say Mrityorma Mrutan Gamaya? Why not Gamaya? This is all because of Mitam Rasvaha. So this we'll see next time, 6492. There is two sets of dhatus in the Ganapatha, one beginning with the dhatu Ghata up to this dhatu Phan in the Bhadi Ganaha. These are considered to have more than it. The difficult thing about this sutram is that these dhatus don't actually have sakshat makaras and it. It's an ati desha. Only by extension they have more than it, makaras and it. And that is because they come in this section of dhatu patha. From this dhatu ghat up to Phan, and this nyapadi, there are about 6-7 of those in the churadi ganaha. So they are considered to have more than it, and when that happens, this pratyaya ni follows, then they get the rasvadesha. So we'll do it in the next time, mitam rasvaha. This Gana Sutram is in the same section of that mitam, of this ghatadeha. These give certain dhatus are also considered to have more than it by extension, and the important one is dhatu jan, janayati. Jani Pradurbhave is a Gana Sutram. So we'll see in the next class. Next class we'll also start the Prakriya for Lit Lakaraha. So if you have further time, you can do for homework Parokshe Lit 32115 along with 3482 Prasipadanam Nal Atususthal Atusanal Vamaha and 6488 Vo Vug Lung Litoho, and then 618 Liti Dhaturunabhyasasya. This all we will do all this next time. Then Puro Bhyasaha 614 Bhavateraha 7473 Lit Sutram 34115 Ardhatukasya Dvaladehe 7235. It's all for next time. Let us stop now. This was November 12th, Prathamo Bhagaha. Next class will be on November 26th. We'll come back for Ramayanam in 5 minutes, in about 10 minutes, okay, 10-15 minutes. Mangalacharanam, Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate, Ramam Ramesham Bhaje, Ramena Bhyata Nishachara Chamu, Ramaya Tasmai Namaha, Raman Nasti Paranam Parataram, Ramasya Dasosmiyaham, Rame Chittale Sada Bhotame Bho Rama Mamuddhara, Rama Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame, Sahasranama Tattvalyam Rama Nama Varanane, Shri Rama Nama Varanana Om Namahiti. Okay, again, next class on November 26th. We'll come back in 15 minutes for the Ramayanam.